Um, Versatile player. Got a lot of different things he can do well. He's got good measurables. Uh, Excited about the person, the makeup, all those types of things. So I'll let Frank talk more specifics about it, but excited to have him. He'll be a nice addition to the offensive line room and provide some more competition, which is what we're always looking for.
Right, what do you project him as right now?
Going inside at guard, competing at guard, he can bump out the tackle.
How did he? I mean, what specifically about his game did you really like in his time at North Dakota State?
He's tough. He's physical. He's a finisher. You'll see him pull out on the perimeter and run pretty well, and he's productive out in space when he did pull. He comes from a winning team, winning culture. You love his intangibles. I mean, he's a worker. That's kind of how he was raised. It's what you're looking for, you know.
Frank, I know he played mostly tackle there, but he did play a couple of games at guard. Does that tape at least help you project that, or is it just traits that help you project him being able to move inside?
A little bit of both. I mean, he's got the play strength to go down inside and play out there in the space and edge. He's got the feet to, I think, to play at this level as well. So I'm excited about this guy. He's got, I think Brian mentioned, he's got high intangibles that you can hang your hat on that got a chance to develop and has upside.
Or did you guys kind of get to know him and learn about those? Was that did you guys combine interviews? Did you guys do a lot of zooms with him?
Yeah, I did some zooms with this guy. Just jumps out at you. Doing some research that way, and really had a good Zoom visit with him.
Frank, when you look at the traits you're looking for from a guard, does he have a similar set of skills as like Adeniji or Carmen or the guys you have, or did you get something different to, a different style of player than what you already have in the building?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. He's a good, solid player. He's got good O line traits like all those guys have. Nothing out of the ordinary. I wouldn't say anything different per se. Uh, he's just a great guy to add to the room for competition. We got a nice young group. We're starting to kind of formulate the last couple of years, and he's a guy that's going to be great in that regards.
Is it more challenging to evaluate a smaller school guy based on their competition, and what goes into that?
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit challenging because the degree of difficulty, if you will, the level of comp. But it was kind of fun watching North Dakota State because they're really pro style in their offense. You see a lot of what you're going to ask him to do. He's already kind of doing it. So it's from that way, it's a little bit easier, I would say, than watching some of these guys on these spread systems, even at these bigger universities. But they, their hands never in the dirt, and they really don't do a lot, but just kind of run side to side and get in the way. So with that regards, it's a little bit easier. So.
Frank, could he compete for that left guard spot starting week one?
Everybody in that room can compete for any job. So if you don't have that mindset, if it doesn't matter where you are on that depth chart, it's my MO is you got to earn it every day. You got to earn it every year. I don't care where you're coming from, where you're drafted, and what you did last year. It's all about what you're doing today, and that's what makes this league so great.
Brian, how important was it for you guys to address offensive line at some point in this class and continue to develop that room, even though you added what you did in free agency?
I think you're always looking to add young players to your offensive line room. I mean, it's something that Frank will talk about all the time. Is you try to add guys every year that you think you can develop and help, and as you get competition and guys get better, and guys rise, you hope to find a good starting group and good quality depth, and that's what we're looking for. And those guys that we have in our room now are up to the task and the challenge of competing. And we felt like we'd be able to add a quality player at some point in this draft. The way that the board falls and where guys go and how they go and where we were picking, and at the end of these rounds, a lot of good players have gotten drafted before we've had a chance to pick as well. And just to be dependent on the spot and where we felt great about it, we had kind of targeted Volson as a guy that would fit somewhere here on this last day in the draft, and it just came up that this was the spot for him. I don't know that he'd probably make it much longer if he was still on the board. I know a lot of people around the league had high regard for him. So that's just how it goes with the draft. You never know exactly when and where you're going to add pieces. It kind of depends on where your grades have guys and where the other positions fall. But we certainly were hoping to add a lineman, earlier than later, someone that we felt like could really come in and compete. And we feel good about Bolson and what he brings to us.
Brian, those small school guys that you've gone for like the last couple Is that a factor in trying to counter the competition? Is how much he plays, or does that even matter?
I mean, I think it does matter to some degree. I mean, you want guys that are experienced football players. I mean, you're always going to take a player that's got 45 starts versus a guy that's played 1 year of production. You know, at least you see a guy consistently produce over his career. And those are the types of players that jump out at you. You see them a little bit more refined occasionally. But I wouldn't say that it makes or breaks a player, nor does it make a difference whether they're at a big school or a small school. We try to identify the traits that we like in players, the personalities that we like in players, and we go from there. And there's always going to be an adjustment, particularly as at offensive line, as you guys see all the time. It's not an easy position to come in early and play well. It's hard. It takes time and development and work. And I think that that's what you're hoping for is that guys are going to come in and be able to do that and ascend quickly. And I think Volson has the capability to do that. But I don't know that the competition in small school or starts or anything like that matter necessarily in the long run. It's just what do they do when they get here, and that's really what you hope for. But certainly, guys that play more football, it's always easier to evaluate. And they tend to have a little bit of a leg up because of their experience.
When you look at the acquisitions you guys made in free agency, and I know as coaches you'll say competition is always welcome and nobody has a starting spot right now, but left guard is the spot that you look at and say has the biggest room for someone to take a role as a starter. Did you guys have, going into this process, any desire to want to just draft a guard knowing that was the position, or you just look at it as an offensive lineman who can, if he played tackle, slide into guard? Like, do you just look at traits, or was having a specific player who played guard mostly important to you guys?
I'll let you take that, Frank.
Okay. I think it's kind of a combination, from my perspective as the offensive line coach, just focusing on offensive line, not having to deal with the whole roster. But for me, just really it's a guy that the best offensive lineman that's available. And if he can truly go inside, there's a lot of guys that play tackle that I don't think could go in and play inside. They don't have the power or the strength, the anchor to go down inside, or I question it. So it doesn't really matter if he was purely a guard or a tackle that moves in. It was really just a guy who's, in my opinion, the best available offensive lineman. So some of those guys would fluctuate. We're in the draft. I mean, if someone fell to us that was, just a tackle, that'd be a different conversation you might have to have at that point, as opposed to a guy who's more interior. To me, an interior need was a little bit more glaring, for lack of a better term, for us. So I don't know if that answers your question. Or.
So why do you think he can go inside? I'm sorry if that's been
Yeah,
asked.
the toughness he plays with, the power he plays with, the strength he plays with. I think he'll have no problem going inside.
I know they're different players, but do you see similarities in him and Jackson? Because obviously Jackson was a tackle too in college, so
Right. Right. I would say maybe Jackson is maybe just a little more athletic overall. Just looking at pure testing numbers, if you will, you can make a difference there. But otherwise, I see two good football players.
Frank, you praise his intangibles a lot. Have you seen that intangible stuff valued maybe more in this Bengals coaching staff and front office than other teams you've worked with?
Say that one more time, please.
You've talked a lot about his intangibles. Have you seen the intangible side of the draft stressed more in the types of players you guys had in the Bengals compared to others?
Yeah, for me, that's like line one. If line two, at worst, line three in my room. I mean, you got to have guys that have intangibles, the work ethic. What are they made of? What's their mental toughness, their grit? Can they learn? Can they process fast? With the way that we run our scheme on offense, the defense is going to move and shift. We're going to invite them to do that with our motions that we utilize. So you got to be able to think like this, react, adjust, and then go play fast. And then, so all that it goes into the makeup. We're not just showing them a card and go block that guy. There's a lot of guys who excel at that, but once it goes live, the picture starts changing on them, their play goes down. So that's huge to me. And when a guy needs to develop, he's not going to develop to the maximum ability if he doesn't have all those intangibles. I mean, this league is a son of a you-know-what. And to make it, you got to have some you-know-what in your neck. You got to have some grit, or you're not going to make it. I mean, I've been in this a long time as a player, a horrible player, but as a coach, okay? And there was guys that you see come and go that are so talented and got their off-the-charts measurables, and you're like, man, how come that guy didn't make it? He was, he was in the league for 2 or 3 years. It's because he don't have the other stuff. That to me, and I'm just talking offensive line play. It's critical. It's critical. If you don't have that, you got no chance. I don't care how big you are, how pretty you look, how fast you run. None of that matters if you don't have a little shit in your neck. And I'll go ahead and say it. That's just the reality of it.
How do you gauge that? Does it show up on film? Is it through Zoom?
It shows on film. It shows when you talk with them and you ask some questions. There's some personality assessment exams that a lot of teams utilize, the league utilizes, that we have access to, that kind of exposes that and leads you into, hey, I need to dig into this area a little bit more. You talk to their position coaches or other coaches on staff at their colleges. I mean, that's how you find out. I mean, you don't know really to the very end until you actually get him here, right? But you do your best assessment on all those areas to find out what's this guy made of, can he overcome adversity and all that kind of stuff.
Ryan, how telltale sign finishing plays finish?
That's a huge part of it, right? Does he love ball, right? Is he a strainer, right? Or is he just kind of throttle down and relax, right, at the end of the play? You know as good as anyone lap what that's all about. So absolutely. This guy finishes. He finishes. He's physical. Put on that Montana State game. You'll see him finishing guys. So he's what you're looking for in a young player like that.
Ryan, obviously, there's been a lot of focus on the offensive line throughout free agency now, an offensive line pick in the 4th round. How excited are you to see how much of a step forward this offensive line can take in front of Joe next year?
Oh, I can't wait to see these guys get together. It's a collection of personalities that we're really high on, that we think are going to mesh together great. Between Karras and Kappa, those two who have been in town, they're already working out. I mean, those are the guys that we're excited to see. LC will be here at some point too, very soon. And to see those guys get in the room and start to compete and start to build that camaraderie. And I think when you talk to Frank, one of the biggest parts about the offensive line, different than really probably any position, is the way that unit comes together, with those 5 starting guys and the personality they take on together as a unit, as a room, is really important. And I think we've added the types of players that are going to contribute to bolstering that mentality in our room that we're looking for. And I'm excited for the competition. I think that's going to really raise the level, raise the boats, if you will, the guys in the room, try to get the best out of all of them. And I'm excited for that competition to start. I'm excited for those guys to get together, and I can't wait to see what our line looks like this year and compared to what we've had in the past. And I'm really excited about it. I think, Frank, you probably feel the same way with our additions that we've made. So it's exciting. I'm sure Frank can't wait to get his hands on them all together and get coaching and teaching and get back on the grass. But I'm excited. I think we've done a lot of good things for that room over the course of this offseason.
Coach, as you look at the NFL's always found players in smaller schools, smaller places. With the digital technology and social media and everything, are you getting more intel, or are you just getting the intel faster?
Are you asking me?
I would say first, our guys, the availability of information is everywhere, and the adage that it's been true forever, I think, is if you're good enough, you'll get found. People find you. These scouts travel all over the country. They do a great job. They find players. They get the process started 2 and 3 years out. They're well aware of who's coming up and who's next. In these schools nowadays, I think the profile from TV and all those things has definitely been raised. You see them on TV more often. You see their schools, their colors, all the things. It's more widely recognizable now than maybe it was 20 years ago. But certainly because of the TV and the social media and all that stuff, you're seeing more and more players. Maybe necessarily that as coaching staffs and scouting staffs we've always seen, but maybe it's more available publicly now more than it has been. That's probably where it feels like there's more of it. But certainly the guys do a great job of lining up the players regardless of school. They do their diligence and their homework on all these places, and they go to every school across the country and really get a feel for these rosters as these kids are coming up through their processes. And by the time they get to draft eligible, our guys got a really good feel of who's coming out and who's available regardless of the size of the school. So I think there's definitely a thoroughness to it, and I think you're seeing a lot more smaller school guys probably getting opportunities that maybe they didn't used to get, recognition and such. I would agree. Yep.
The scheme that he ran and the technique that he used to run it, how does it translate to what you're going to expect him to do coming here at this level?
Yeah, like I mentioned, they run a lot of pro style stuff in their run game. I mean, they're dotting the I, they're running to 2 tight end sets in the wing. He's pulling out on perimeter stuff. It's all things that we do. He does wide zone, he does tight zone, to do a little gap scheme to complement that stuff. So you see him on tape do everything that we're gonna want to do with him here as well. So he should have an easy transition from that standpoint. It won't be real foreign to him like some of these kids that come in from different systems. But so that definitely was fun to watch, you know, and eased, for lack of a better word there, my decision to get more excited about this guy, you know. It's easy to watch his college tape.
Is he good with his hands? I mean, do you like the way he uses his hands?
Yeah, I do like the way he uses his hands. He does use his hands well. I mean, there's a lot of things he needs to continue to improve on and get better at, obviously. And, you know, there's a reason why I think he's maybe a little bit better suited to go in at a guard than stay out at tackle. But that does not take away him as a player or offensive lineman at all.
Just to circle back real quick, what does it mean to have a little, what in your neck?
What do you mean by that? I mean, I think it's self-explanatory, you know. I mean, have you seen the D linemen we have to go against every day? Right? I mean, you got to have a little something in your neck to give them a little shove at the end of the block, not let them give you the shove, you know. I mean, maybe I just reflect on my own experience because I wasn't a very good player, how hard it was to play in this league. And it's hard, and you're going to have to overcome some adversity and work through some ups and downs. And a lot of these kids have never faced that. So how are you going to handle it when it hits you right in the mouth, right? Nobody cares where you came from and what your college career was, or I was whatever they call it, 5-star recruit, whatever the hell. No one gives a shit. It doesn't matter. You're playing against grown-ass men. You're trying to take their job. These guys are married with kids. They don't care if you're some hotshot 22-year-old. You know what I mean? And to me, as a coach, I feel like it's my obligation to kind of promote that, you know, because the men in the room that I coach now have earned the right. So the new kid coming in, he's got to earn the right to be in the room and compete with those guys. So I've seen a lot of guys can't handle the business side. This is the best business in the world, and it's the ugliest, nastiest, coldest business in the world. It is what it is. Get over it. Here's a tissue. Go cry in the corner, and let's go. You know what I mean? If you can't handle that, you're not going to last. And I remember back in my years, I mean, Lapp, you probably had guys that come through the locker room back in your day that they couldn't handle that. And they were talented guys, but they just couldn't handle the business. I mean, North Dallas 40 had a great scene in there about when you call it, I call it a game, you call it a business. I mean, I call it a business, you call it a game, you know? And I like sharing that scene with my guys because it's both. And you got to understand it and deal with it and move on. So it is what it is.
Frank, what's going to be the biggest challenge for this guy to go from outside to inside in the throws in this division?
Well, he's going against different cats, man. Those guys are insane. I mean, would the Georgia guy have some 340-pound around a 4.7? That's ridiculous. That's insane. That, to me, is the biggest difference, the guys he's going to go against.
How comfortable are both of you with the guys you have to compete at left guard right now? Obviously, you're not going to tell me if you're adding any more. You don't necessarily know in the draft. But as far as who you have right now, if you had to go into camp with those guys, are you comfortable with the guys that would be competing at that left guard spot?
Yeah, as of right now, we feel good about those guys and what they've done so far, and then the improvements that they have to make. I mean, there's certainly competition is a good thing. We can't sit here and say that we know who that guy's going to be, and that's the best part. Is you're going to find guys that are going to be able to see who's going to rise. Like Frank said, they're all going to get tested, and we're going to find out who the best one is. And that guy that walks out there at opening weekend will have earned that job, and he will have earned it because he played well and he did all the things that we're looking for those guys to do at that spot. And so I think it's exciting. I think it's going to be a fun competition to watch. And, that the door's open for all these guys, and we're looking for them all to improve. You know, they're what we did last year obviously wasn't the standard that we're trying to set for that room. And I think Frank will be the first to tell you. And we're trying to get that. We're trying to raise that standard across the board, from our best player to the worst one in that room. All those guys got to be able to come in and contribute, because that's the way the NFL works. We're going to have guys that have to step in for games or 2 games or 6 games or 12 games, like Isaiah did last year. And that's just the way it goes. And so we're trying to get the best out of all of those guys and have them become the best players they're capable of being for us. And that's going to be fun. And that's the challenge. That's why that's why we love coaching. That's why Frank does it. That's why I do it. But it's going to be exciting for us to see those guys compete.
Frank, do you think you're going to have a mentally tougher offensive line room this year?
Yeah.
Why?
Year 2 with me in the room, with the new additions in the room, for sure. I should have started with there. It always starts with the players, but for sure the new guys we brought in the room. I love what the 3 guys we signed in free agency bring. That was like line 1 for us. What they bring to the room is critical. What Volson's bringing to the room in that regards as well, for sure.
If he's not 40 or 5, is he equally proficient? Both sides of line of scrimmage, right and left?
I think he'll have no problem doing that. I mean, obviously he's been more on the right side in college, but he has played a little bit on the left in some of their unbalanced formations, and he seemed to be a little fluid or effortless for him to do that. To do it more consistently will be a little bit of a challenge to get comfortable with it, but I don't see that being a problem with him.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.